The Gilded Age of the late 19th century America was the golden age of big business and even bigger money. 14 of the richest people from the world's history made their money during this era. John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Henry Clay Frick, George Pullman, and the list goes on. It is the age of the breakers in the Biltmore Mansion and of the phonograph, the telephone, and the radio. Although it was the age of big business and money, all that glitters is not gold. The Gilded Age was also an era of child labor and tenement living, an age of graft, corruption, and greed. Many workers found factory conditions oppressive.
How can one make sense out of a complex and contradictory time such as the Gilded Age? Our broadcast this evening will attempt to answer two questions. What, according to the Church's teachings, constitutes a humane economy, and to what extent did the economy of the Gilded Age conform to these teachings? With our attempts to answer these questions, we hope to shed light on the one riddled question that is being asked. Throughout the Gilded Age, new technologies and ways of organizing businesses led a few individuals to the top of industrialization. Those who could not survive and provide throughout this time period were driven into bankruptcy or brought about by hungry, successful industrialists. Between the years of 1870 and 1920, almost 11 million Americans moved from farms to cities, along with 25 million immigrants arriving from overseas. The Gilded Age marked an era of massive transformation. From the end of Reconstruction into 1877 to the disastrous Panic of 1893, the American economy nearly doubled in size. Pope Leo XIII created a document, Rerum Novarum, in an effort to explain this age through the Catholic social teachings. This evening we are going to explore the different ideas of Pope Leo XIII in relation to the Gilded Age. Now we go to Michael Smith for a brief summary of the document, Rerum Novarum.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here with you today, and I'm happy also to do my best to provide you with an overview of Rerum Novarum. This important encyclical was written in 1891 by Pope Leo XIII, and of course the context is that the world had grown in industry all over, particularly in Western Europe and the United States. And the Pope saw that many people were suffering considerably as a result of the new conditions that had come about in society through industrialization. He stated, in fact, that working men had been surrendered, isolated, and helpless to the hard-heartedness of employers and the greed of unchecked competition. And Pope Leo XIII wanted to address this concern that he had for the workers. He recognized first that one remedy that had been proposed was socialism. And he spends a number of pages at the beginning of the encyclical and very quickly dispenses with this idea. And it's a very interesting argument that he gives against socialism. He argues that the dignity of the human person is violated because inherent in the human's ability is to store up for the future because of our ability to reason. He says that if private property is taken away, then human dignity will be insulted because the human's ability to store up for the future is damaged. But he didn't want to stop there, of course, because he wanted to talk about what needed to be done. And really the first Catholic principle that is thematic throughout Rerum Novarum, which has stood the test of time, is the principle of solidarity. And he argues that the rich need the poor and the poor need the rich, and that it's only in a Christian culture that these two groups, if you will recognize how much they need one another. So he says that they must be bonded together through the bonds of Christian brotherhood and Christian charity. He says that this is the only way in which they will be able to help one another and to improve the troubles in society. Pope Leo XIII also says that workers, when they are oppressed, that they have a right to strike and they have a right to form labor unions. He did qualify it. He said that it's not good to have unnecessary chaos or disorder in society. And so he said that if the qualification then is that if one is not able to have a decent wage and provide for one's family and to be able to store up for the future. He continues to come back to that principle of thinking ahead and of humans being frugal and planning ahead. And he says that if one doesn't have that capacity, then one has a right to strike and to be a member of a union. But then he closes by re-emphasizing that it's really only in a Christian culture that the needs of humans are going to be met with a focus on human dignity that's rooted in Christian love and charity. So those, I think, are the most salient points from the encyclical, and I look forward to hearing what the other experts on your panel today will have to say about the particular strikes that are in question, and what insight we might gain into these responses by applying the lens of Rerum Novarum to those strikes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Father Peebo, and I would like to talk about the conditions concerning the Pullman strike. Quite a disturbing event in Illinois history, all caused by the way one man treated employees. Here we have that one man to find out more about the conditions during his time.
My name is George Mortimer Pullman, founder and president of the Pullman Palace Car Company. I founded this magnificent company in 1867, where we manufactured railroad cars and operated them under contract with the railroad system.
Mr. Pullman, would you mind telling us a bit more about your employees?
Yes. Well, my company is so large that I created what's known as Pullman City, a place just south of Chicago where all of my employees are required to live.
Would you say your employees in Pullman City live a fair and stable life?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Would you mind telling us a bit more about the development of Pullman City? It seems like your employees did not quite enjoy the policies you put in place. And tell us a bit more about the goals of Pullman City. Why did you build it?
Yes. Well, we desired to establish the place on such a basis as would exclude all Baneful influences, believing that such a policy would result in the greatest measure of success, both from a commercial point of view and also, what was equally important, or perhaps of greater importance, in a tendency towards continued elevation and improvement of the condition not only of the working people themselves, but of the children growing up among them.
Mr. Pullman, I have a quote for you. It was from one of your employees. This employee states that Mr. Pullman wasn't a man to let you pray for free. Would you mind telling us about some of the wages that your employees earned and taxes that they had to pay? It seems to me that your employees did not live a very fair and stable life in Pullman City.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that. Rent for a 3-bedroom apartment was about $8 to $8.50 a day. For a bedroom, or a month rather. For a 5-bedroom house with a basement, a bathroom, and water and faucet, went for about $18 a month. And for an even bigger house, well, they went for about $25 a month. I would like to point out that even though the housing may have been slightly more expensive in Pullman City, life in city was much better quality than in other working places such as in Chicago.
So how about the wages your employees earned? Were they fair?
Well, in 1888, wages were around $2.26 a day, but in 1893, wages were around $1.03 a day.
So you cut wages?
Well, yes, I did, but what do you expect a businessman to do? I need to make money also.
So do you believe your workers had a right to strike? I mean, you did cut wages quite a bit.
Well, yes, I did cut wages, but I do not believe they had a right to strike. You see, I believe that the much better quality of living conditions that my employees experienced makes up for the cut in wages, and that each family had an average about $9.30 extra to spend on whatever they pleased.
I see. Well, let's take a look at Pope Leo XIII's Rerum Novarum. And we'll find out if employees did in fact have the right to strike or not.
Oh, well, sure, let's do that.
It says here that if a workman's wages be sufficient to enable him comfortably to support himself, his wife, and his children, he will find it easy. If he be a sensible man, to practice thrift, and he will not fail. By cutting down expenses to put some little savings and thus secure a modest source of income. Your employees may have had decent living conditions and enough money to buy extra food, but did they have enough money for clothes, medical expenses, etc.?
Well, I still don't believe they had the right to strike. I gave them a steady job and shelter. They should be more grateful and appreciative of my generosity.
There you have it, Helping Jess. Mr. Pullman still doesn't believe his workers had the right to strike.
Hello everybody, my name is Victor, and I'm a Catholic expert on Rerum Novarum, and I'm here with Jimmy Lofton, the person who witnessed the Haymarket riot.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I am blessed to be with you today, and I wish to share my story and experiences with you.
Alright, thanks. Here's our first question. Please briefly describe the events that led up to the Haymarket riot, and please explain the purpose of the riot.
The Haymarket riot happened May 4th, 1886, and was because we wanted a fair 8-hour workday. A striker was even killed by the police the day before, which led us to be even more intense. We were trying to stand up for what we believed in, and at the time, there isn't nobody that was going to stop us.
So, did the riot go as planned, and did it accomplish what it was set out to do?
No, everything was a disaster. The rain poured down and people left, and several key speakers never even showed up. But the worst part is that we were attacked. One man threw a bomb into the crowd, and the explosion killed 11 people. After that tragic event, the government declared martial law. This brought everything to a standstill. There were no newspapers, labor leaders were rounded up, and police invaded houses without search warrants.
Wow. So, I just noticed that in paragraphs 39, 42, and 60 of Rerum Novarum, specifically paragraph 39, there's a quote that states, when work people have recourse to a strike and become voluntarily idle, it is frequently because the hours of labor are too long or the work too hard, or because they consider the wages insufficient. Do you think you're protesting under just cause?
Yes, it was a just cause, but the fact that the police attacked the protesters made the riot get out of hand, which led to chaos and disarray.
So who do you think threw the bomb?
I think it was probably one of the policemen. All they wanted is for us to stop rioting. I think they used the bomb as an excuse to exercise martial law, but it's still unknown who threw the bomb.
So what was the issues with 10-hour workdays? I think it doesn't seem like a big deal to have them.
See, that's where you're wrong. 10-hour workdays are the worst. It feels as though when you get home, you can't do anything because you're so tired from work, and then you have no time for yourself or your family.
Alright, sorry folks, but we're out of time. Thank you, Jimmy Lofton, for coming in and giving us your perspective of the Haymarket riot. Back to you, Hope and Dust.
Thanks, Jimmy and Victor. Today we are joined by Brad and Michael, who are experts on the Great Railroad Strike of 1877.
Well, looking back at it, that's the best idea.
So can you tell us where and why the strike occurred?
Well, the strike occurred obviously in 1877 in the town of Martinsburg, Virginia. Workers of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad went on strikes because the company had reduced workers' pay 10% from the beginning of the year and another 10% later.
So the main reason was about money.
Yes. After both 10% cuts, on average, a single man would make about $1.42 a day, and that's for a 12-hour shift. This would also accumulate to about $460 a year, but that's without the taxes of food, money, and
So after these taxes, how much did the person have left?
about $170.
You stated earlier that the strike was unnecessary. Why do you think so?
Well, during the year 1891, Oakland Enforcement wrote a document called Rerum Novarum, which completely changed the way Roosevelt thought about the strike.
What does this document say?
Well, this document is very lengthy, but certain parts describe whether or not a strike is justifiable. The Pope explained very clearly that workers only need to be paid a minimal amount, but enough to support themselves and have a little extra left over for personal use. Yeah, and since the person had 177 average left over, there's no need to strike. Therefore, it was a waste of time, lives, money, and overall, we didn't need it.
Thank you for your time. We are very happy to have you all speaking today, as well as our other guest speakers.
Thank you for joining us today on the discussion of this document.
We appreciate your time and hope you learned a lot.